constellation, cross the space between the tips of wings, fly Andromeda angel. Drop through space and time to gaze your rising face. Amazed to find the place where God defined His grace divine. Off this earth, I'm off to search across the verse to find all that lies between you and me. Cross the great divide. Should I fail to find you out in space between its edges, I'll fly till the universe ends, then take another step. Another step. Another step. Another step. Another
There we go. There we go. Alright. Still getting used to some of these setups here. I was basically playing around with OBS earlier, just trying to play around with some settings to get this stuff automated. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to get set up my own Discord. Claim account. Weird. Alrighty. Oh, sorry about that, everybody. I'm Cameron with Neologic Studios. Today's just kind of like a random, thing that I want to do. I am working on a couple of mastering projects. I'm gonna try to get them out the door kind of quick today because I've been working with him for a while. His name is Without a Chord. He does some really cool hybrid stuff that's, oh gosh, it's in the vein of so many different styles of EDM he's been working on over the years. The stuff that he's putting out lately has been like, he's got a melodic rhythm and psytrance track that he was working on. Today is something different. He actually sent me 2 tracks, so I'm going to try to work with one that he just sent me an updated mix for. And basically our process is this. He'll send me the mix, I'll critique it, I'll give it like a test master, I'll try to run it through my chains, and see what sounds good, what he likes, what he dislikes, and then we'll kind of fine-tune that process when we get to the final master. So the final master is going to be whatever chain that he likes best, but it all comes down to just working with him. Communication is what it comes down to. And anytime you're working with a mastering engineer, find somebody who's on your team, who loves your music, who's fighting for you. He wants to get you the win, he or she, could be a she. But yeah, so let me dive in really quick here, and I will share with you guys the, sorry, it's kind of windy over here. All right, there we go. Let me know if you guys can hear me okay. So first off, let me just make sure we've got some sound. I apologize for that horrible line noise that's coming through my old sound card. Okay, so first off, this is mix 3 that he sent me. I'm just going to duplicate that track, but I don't want the audio clip. We're going to mute that one. We will just archive that. And this is Elite Martyr V4. So I have kind of like a, well, not kind of, I do. I have a decent file organization system. So let me just walk you through that really quick. One, I have folders based on, the year. I try to label them according to the client that I'm working with, the song that I'm working on, and what stage of production I'm in. So typically it's mastering. Although I do have other projects, side projects going on where I might be producing stuff or mixing stuff for other people or myself even. And it just helps to know what's going on. So that's another thing, is coming up with a convention that you're going to stick to. Something where it's easy to identify what projects are. So if I were to go and say, hey, look, he sent me mix V4. Oops. I'm going to label this mix V4. I'm also going to save this project as really quick. And we're going to call this mastering V2. I need to go back and change the naming convention of this one for sure, because I wasn't paying attention to this. Master V2. Late Martyr mix V3, or sorry, V4, just so I know what I've received from the client. And yeah, so I'm just going to save that really quick. Bam. Now, since I'm saving the project file in the same folder as the current one, I'm not worried about where the audio is going because it's all sharing the same directory anyway. And I don't want to have to worry about creating duplicate files of things, so it just waste of file space, right? So anyway, now that I have that version, I'm just going to open it up really quick, and I can see roughly there are no changes to the arrangement or the composition, because if you look at just the waveform by itself, there really isn't any differences in the waveform. The timing of things looks about the same. The waveform looks pretty identical, but I think what he did was he did some minor mix adjustments, which means if we were to compare the output volumes of these two, they might have some differences and they might have tonal differences, but for the most part, it's pretty much all set up so that it matches my original template. Now, I've already gone the work and done because I did a previous master on V3 already, and I'm coming back to this one, touch up the mastering process for him on V4. And I've already gone through, I've labeled the arrangement, I've put markers on my timeline just so I know where things are, and I've also set my in and out points in the region up at the top, so that way I can easily just quickly grab things. And let's say, let's just have a look here. Yep, that's what I thought. Let's bring that back in line. There we are. And let's just take a look at what's going on with this project. I'm going to play the old mix for you guys, and we'll do some comparing and contrasting. Alright, very cool. I'm going to go back and we're going to play just through that switch in the halftime drop there. And I'm going to toggle the mute between V3 and V4. Very cool. So I think, yeah, he just did some minor changes. There's like a transition with one different, riser sound basically, or drop. And everything else is pretty much set to go. It's pretty identical between the two. Just a couple minor changes he wanted to fix in his mix or production. And I just wanted to tweak the low end just a little bit. I feel like it was just a hair too loud. That we are losing some top end just because we're overworking certain parts of the chain. So I usually try to address that a little earlier. So notice I went back into the linear multi-band compressor, and this is, of course, here looking at my automation there. I felt like he didn't need all that low end in the mix as far as that was concerned. Maybe we can bring that back a little bit. I'll show you guys. Gonna be a good compromise there. But yeah, there was a ton of low end there that's really plucky, and I feel like it was just it wasn't the character is going for. I'm kind of making an assumption on his part. I'm doing some creative moves on mine to kind of emphasize the different sections of the song to help it stand out. Now you're going to see this pretty common in mastering stages, just to help the mix do its thing a little better. And this is also going to improve things like the reading or the rating on things like your LUFS. So you're going to have a little bit more dynamic range, especially if we give that low end a break, we give our ears some time to recover and adjust, because all that pressure, all the sub and low end constantly putting stuff in our face, our ears tend to fatigue a lot faster, but even though we don't notice it, and then we start to notice things just get duller over time. So anytime we can give our ears a break to reset, doing that tonal balance shift right there, just in that little break during the song, I think is helping out a ton. So that's pretty much the only adjustment that I had there. The rest is all just playing with the sides a little bit. I feel like they were just pushed a little too wide, and it wasn't really benefiting any from it, so I just brought it back. I dialed it in, but it wasn't like all the way back to where it was normally. So 0 would be zeroed out. -5 is, you know, some moves, some range between -5 and 0.2, I believe, is like the range that I'm playing with stereo width movement between the sections of the song. So I think that's it for this one. Let me just go ahead and bounce this. And then while I'm bouncing, so what I like to do is I just click on the track to highlight it. I'm going to control left click on chain A here, and I'm going to export as audio. And this just ensures that whatever is in my path here, I selected the length of the clip, so it'll be exactly the length of the clip that they were sent, and then also passing through chain A, just to be sure. Sorry. That poor mic. Sorry, Mike. This is Elite Martyr, Master D2. And I like to bounce several versions of the final masters for my clients, and usually it comes down to I will bounce whatever resolution, meaning the sample rate of the song that I am given to work in, and the higher the sample rate, the more future-proof it is. But usually the way that distribution outlets work, it's a little bit different. But first, let me just walk you through this. So I'm going to, since he sent me at 44, I'm working in Project at 24-bit, but I can bounce at 32-bit. And the reason for this is I like to have the highest resolution master available, and we're going to call this the archival master. So this here will be Martyr Master V2 archival 4432. And then later I will go in and rebounce, and you'll see at the end of my chain I have something like Ozone's Maximizer, and they have their own modules for things like dither, and then specifying the type of dither that I'm applying to. So I will go and bounce two more versions, one for CD, which is like basically 4416, you know, that's CD standard, and one more at streaming. You know, basically if they plan on distributing directly to outlets for whatever reason, they'll have this one immediately available. It's already set to -2 dB true peak, which is different than just -2 dB in full scale, meaning digital reading. And this is monitoring for intersample peaking, and I'm basically saying we're going to enforce true peak limiting and limit it to output at -2 dB. And so when you go to upload something like this at 4424-bit, you have a little bit more resolution there to play with as well. That's something that, you know, whoever your digital service provider is, assuming that they're going to be aiming for Spotify, for example, Spotify wants -2 dB true peak, because you can have their transcoding processes create peaks when they transcode as high as +6 dB from the original file. And this is just doing as much as possible to mitigate those kinds of, basically it's called resampling. And anytime you're a resampling or a sample rate conversion, SRC as they call it, or you know, you give them the file, they're going to basically apply the transcoding process. And the transcoding process is looking at the signal. It's going to break it into 128, 256 bands. It's going to look into 256 different parts of the frequency spectrum and try to throw out redundant information. So only the stuff that's unique across those 256 bands is what gets kept. And then from there, it reconstructs the audio as a lossy MP3 format, or AAC, or OGG, or whatever the container is, or the codec is. All that information that's thrown out, you can't get back. But in that process, there's reconstruction happening, meaning that anytime that it's throwing out all the unnecessary information, peaks are going to be redrawn. So it's basically resampled. And that's where you start to introduce all these different changes. So that's why I tried to give them as many opportunities to prevent that or mitigate that as possible. And that's what a master engineer, really has to pay attention to these days. Gone are the days where, we're pushing redline on a CD, or we're, playing with markers for, pre-emphasis to be able to have that particular sound come out on, speaker systems or a CD player system that supports pre-emphasis flags. Not that anybody even knows what that means. So now that this one is done, I'm going to bounce that. I'll show you guys my next process here. So again, I open up Ozone, or it's not Ozone, it's just the maximizer. And I'm going to go to dither. I'm going to set it to 16. I am going to set the dither amount low and noise shaping there. I'm also going to limit peaks just because I feel like that for high frequency content, this tends to suppress some things that might lead to a higher intersample peaks, just from what I've heard. I could be wrong, but just noticing some subtle things there. And everything looks good here. I'm going to do the same process again, grab that clip, control click, and export. So this is V2 4416. So what's everybody up to today? Been crazy? Everybody enjoying their day off, or do you have to work? Let me just hop over here. And hopefully not too bad with the frame drops. And yes, I'm doing this all on a single machine. Alright, so as you can tell, it does take a little while to do this stuff where you're just going to sit around and have some free time. What I like to use this time for, or I should use this time for, is to go in and update my project timesheets, do my invoicing, things like that. Because I'm a one-man band, unfortunately. Let's see, this is 45. Alright, so now you can see I've basically just sent myself some quick notes, and then I'm going to estimate, what, 710? We'll just say 715. 0.5, right? Yeah, 0.5. Bam. And this is already paid for, so you are good, my bro. Boom. Now we're just waiting on one more export, and then we'll jump into a brand new project. So you guys can see me start from scratch with that. How's everybody doing today? What are you guys up to? Hopefully enjoying your weekend. I would assume so, because I don't see a whole lot of people on right now. And if you are, what are you doing on here? Go do something. So for anybody out there that's been on Twitch for a while, I'm curious what you guys use for managing kind of like, you know, your central hub. Because right now I'm using OBS Studio in Restream to stream through all the platforms. But managing chat becomes a real biatch when you're going through just one screen. So I've kind of got a laptop set up to the side. I'm curious if anybody has any better solutions. So hit me up in the chat. Let me know if you guys have any solutions for that other than phone, because I kind of need to use my phone for other stuff. All right, that one is done. Boom. Without a chord, man, you are killing it. Okay, we're gonna do one more. I'm gonna set this to 24. So here's the trick, folks, that I was saying earlier. I'm gonna enable true peak, and I'm gonna go to -2. Setting the ceiling here at true peak is going to force the true peak to be at -2 dB, meaning inner sample peaks are really going to be watched out for, and there might be some variation in what the other versions that I put out, but it shouldn't be too audible. It might be barely noticeable to the most trained of ears. Like if you did an A/B comparison and we're flipping back and forth between those two to hear the effect of what the limiter is doing. So let me grab these one last time. I'm gonna export as 24-bit. So we'll call this streaming 4424. So you guys notice since I'm letting Ozone do the dithering, I have always been exporting with nothing on dither here at, so you don't need double dither. Basically you're dithering twice, you don't need that. And all that's gonna do is raise your noise floor. So, bam. One last bounce. Hang out there with me, folks. Hang on. We're getting there. Alrighty. And you can see it working. I mean, look at the peaks that it's handling. It's actually doing quite a bit of gain reduction. Now that should be the same amount, because all I did was change the ceiling, which is effectively just saying turn down the output. Granted, you do have multiple stages. I like that Ozone gives you so many layers of control. So ceiling can still be set to a certain level, and then you can have your actual master output from the plugin here also be turned up or down to compensate for certain loudness adjustments that your ceiling is doing. So it's separate from the actual limiter section. And the nice part is, let's say you were having a really slow attack on how fast it's turning down the signal or letting go of the signal. So if it's too slow, that's where these peaks can go above 0 dB. You can compensate for that in the master volume fader here. And that's nice, but most people don't think in terms of like, okay, well, how's my signal looking? They just make sure that's not peaking the red right here, right? And you can tell it's a hard -2.0. However, the true peak is also doing things that we're not going to see in the metering, because most metering is just digital full scale. It's not really showing you the intersample peaks unless you have specific plugins that are allowed to recon, meaning that they have to do some algorithms and basically estimate or guess at what the true peaks might be reconstructed at. And what you're really trying to do is prevent digital clipping at the converters or down the line. Let's say we're this close. If we were a 0.1 dB, -0.1 dB on the ceiling for the limiter here, that's basically saying we are right just 0.1 dB away from 0, which is just a tiny fraction of an amount, not even a percent, away from the actual ceiling. Nothing can be reconstructed above 0. 0 is just the ceiling, it's the top. And what happens with intersample peaks is it can be reconstructed during playback even to go above 0. And then you have either the software clipping or the hardware clipping, and it just sounds nasty. It sounds awful, and it distracts people away from the song. And you know what I'm talking about if you heard stuff like this on transcodes to SoundCloud or Spotify. I think Spotify handles it a lot better. Did I lose everybody? Hopefully you guys are still there. Did I just get cut off? Okay, so where was I? Anyway, you get the idea. It sounds god awful and we don't want it. So that's the last export. Looks like we're done. This one's good to go. I'm going to save this. Anytime you see the star next to the file name up there, definitely hit save. Okay. This is the very last thing that I like to do. I am going to just save my effects chain as a preset, and I go to my presets, projects, and we're going to call this one. I know, I have his spelling 2 different ways for his name. Mark with a K and Mark with a Q. Which one is it, Mark? Come on. This is Elite Martyr. And we'll just leave it as chain 8. I'm fine with that. I know what I'm working with. So that is that. We are going to close this project down. We're going to open a new project. And what did you call this one? This one was The Great Shred. There we are. 24, 44, 1. Yep, I believe we are all gravy. All right, new project. Bam. Yes, I have templates already saved for this. This is my custom template, which, by the way, if you guys haven't seen before, go to my shop, neologicstudios.com/shop, and you can actually grab this for Cakewalk. I have it available for free. So everything's kind of laid out, and I have a walkthrough that I've shared in the past with you guys, especially on a live stream, where I kind of just label how these things all work, how the signal flow works, my workflows, and different methodologies for using those. And yeah, it's pretty easy to get into mastering with this. I just like the signal flow. It makes sense to me. I can get in and out quick. In fact, I'm just going to drop this into mix. Oh, he has a mix V2. Okay. I'm just like converted to 32-bit. Thank you, Mark, for following my best practices. If you guys can, the best thing that I usually recommend for anybody who's bouncing a mix that doesn't have any mastering stuff applied on it, I like to turn down the master bus until it's no longer, like the loudest part of the song isn't peaking. And I would prefer it to be about -6, but it's okay as long as it's not hitting 0. But as another safety measure, I like to export. I tell you guys, export at 32-bit depth and no dithering. And that just helps me so that if there are any potential overs above 0, like there's a really fast transient somewhere really high up that just clips for some reason, 32-bit float will catch that, and I can preserve that information. So that's pretty cool. I like to work that way. It's just a good safety measure so that we don't have to go back and be like, hey, I need you to bounce that for me one more time. Waste time doing stuff like that. We can just get right into the thick of it. So very first thing I like to do is figure out what tempo this is in. Alright, pretty interesting. So it's 202 beats per minute. Man, that tempo is fast. I love all the cool chord stuff, but I feel like that chain that I set up in the previous project just isn't the best match for it. I kind of want to pull one up from an older project we worked on. Totally different approach. And that approach... trying to remember which one it was. Might have been this one. Close. That just has the tonal variations because of the differences between what this at LinMB is doing and then the previous one. There was a different one I had a totally different approach on. Let me see if I can find it. Where did you go? Speaking of, I need to mark that I am starting this project here. And that time was, we'll just say 7:15 since we left off on the other one. There we go. Alright. And yes, these are all paid in advance. Where did you go? Is this no, maybe it was Phantom Free. Oh, I think it was. Nope. I don't think so. Yeah, it's looking way too familiar. What the F? Where'd you go? Well then we will just undo that. Maybe it was the one I was skipping over. Is that the joystick clipper? I think no, I just turned off several things. Yeah, I just turned off a lot actually. So you notice how it gets a little soft, that the transients kind of lost their punch, you know, the crispness to them, and that was with less compression actually than the other chains. Those chains are compressing the crap out of the signal and character shaping along the way, but there was just so much distortion and saturation going on that didn't work. It worked well for the other track because I felt like it needed it, and it actually helped the character and definition of the transients. But in this case, there's just so much going on, and there's already such low crest factor. If you guys look at the waveform, crest factor is kind of like what are the relationship of the transients, how much headroom is there between transient and sustained material, especially in the lower frequencies. And this is already pretty soft in the low end. So I don't want to soften it any further. I feel like it just needs a little something different. Where did I put it? You know, maybe it was maybe it was an older one I'm thinking of. Oh yes. Okay, CC Pro L, here we are. I have a totally different limiter approach. I was doing some A/B comparisons on a previous project, and this is the one. So let's take a listen. I just did right there. I'm setting my crossover point. I'm trying to look for kind of like the nulls between the largest section of the material where most of the sub is really ending the kick and kind of separating from the upper harmonics of the sub. Let me just play that again. Between 82, 84, I might even just put that to 85 and we'll call it a day. But this crest, this see this little falling like section here, between 80 and 100, I'm really just trying to catch that. It's mostly sub. So you can really hear the sub is more prevalent down in the lows than the kick. The kick has more top end to it. So I really just want to kind of focus on taming the purest notes of the sub. And if it happens to catch a little bit of the bottom end thump, you can hear it in there, but it's also distorted. There's a lot of very complex harmonics in that kick. So it kind of just takes up a whole range of that spectrum. And when you get down this low, you want to be really critical of what is playing that way, because that can start to lead to distorted sounding masters because you're trying to push the volume too loud. And when you square off complex sounding harmonics that are all sharing, between 20 and 40 hertz, well, it just sounds like a muddy mess. And that's where weird distortion starts to sound unpleasant. Good, pleasant harmonic distortion would be actual harmonic distortion, meaning you're actually having stuff where the tonal range of the frequencies that it's occupying are in a relationship that is melodic or harmonic, meaning like triad or fifth or fourth. Usually when you're playing down this low, you want to do a perfect fourth or a perfect fifth, or even an octave like that. You want to try to keep that root note pure tone. So let's continue on that. This G-channel, I'm just trying to re-emphasize just kind of this segment between these harmonics here, the actual root of the kick or the lowest fundamental of the sub. Notice where I have that crossover point is about 50, so that low shelf is going to start emphasizing plus 1.1 right around that level. So I'm just doing tweaking on this particular chain, but I might go back and forth and balance between the two. And let's just double check. Let's check in on this guy here. It definitely seems clean, but I want to do something a little extra. So I'm putting this toward the end of the chain. And on purpose. I'm going to look for a little saturation. Give me 1 second here. Wow. Big difference there. Okay. Let's clear all this crap out. Don't need any of that. So, should we go Hollywood or London? Yeah. Dude, what up, Robert? Hey, how's it going, Mark? Yeah, always when you want something, it's hard to find. I agree. Oh, man. Yeah, they do sound, and yeah, the two chains do sound really close, but this one here, there are some tonal differences that all the way through the chain. The biggest thing is my limiter is set differently. The character is different. It's different response. Both Pro L and Isotope kind of have this black box thing that they're starting to lean towards, which means there's less controls than more, and you can't really fine tune it the way that you could say Newfangled Elevate, which is incredibly insane. So this guy here, you can change everything about it. The filter bank, the limiter EQ. So basically this is a per band limiter. You can adjust, the curves going into it. You can also mess with the transients on a per band basis, and then the clipper. You can have basically pushing super hard, softer, and out of this, I like to follow it up with one last stage of limiting, hence the Pro L. I usually always use it that way just because it's doing more soft clipping than hard. So, you know what? I think we're gonna go. Let's just hear what New York sounds like really quick. Looks like the spot. Sorry, I'm just going to show off what it's doing here really quick. Yeah, it definitely really affects the highs more than the other range that I want it to. But there is another approach I can do. It would take some fine tuning, but it's called pre-emphasis and de-emphasis EQ. And so I'd put an EQ pre and post, but you also have to use an EQ that completely nulls out, meaning that that's phase accurate. And a lot of EQs just aren't. especially when you start to get up in the upper range. There's something towards the Nyquist limit, as they call it. So as you approach 20K here, for example, things just get really asymmetrical just because it's right up, it's crunching up against the edge of what is capable within the band limit. So I'm going to bypass this one for now, but maybe try Hollywood. See what I did there? So I went from -10 on the pre-EQ, meaning before this saturator tool, and then I basically boosted back by 10 at the same frequency bands after to kind of bring back that material. Now, basically what I'm saying is I am de-emphasizing the upper registers, 10K, 4K, and trying to push that mid-range in. So maybe even do... let's just say we'll pull in 56. I for sure want to high pass above 56, but let's also do it here. There it is. So we'll just say -3. That's 60. So put this to 60 and do +3. don't know, I'm kind of iffy on it. On one hand, I feel like it's buffing up the low end like I want, but at the other end, it also feels a little softer and just a little harsher in all of those upper arps. So I may just come back to this, and for now, just leave it off. Or you know what? Let me put it a little further in the chain. So we're actually shaving off quite a bit of RMS material there too. Man, that is crushed. But it doesn't sound as crushed as you would think, right? Alright, so I'm going to call this one done. I'm going to bounce 2 chains. I'm going to bounce C and B, because I kind of like B where it was at. But before I do anything more, I feel like there are some spots where I can do some automation work and kind of help those sections along. I want to go through in the arranger and just kind of like fill out the tempo changes, which by the way, let me know, Mark, if there were tempo changes in this, let me know, or even time signature changes. I kind of noticed some things going off grid just a little bit. I don't know if that was just my click or if that was in your track, but yeah, I'll follow up with you on that, man. Well then, that comes to the end of our stream here. Thanks everybody for watching, and until next time, if you guys want the Cakewalk mastering template project, go to my website. Sorry, let me go share it with you guys again. So yeah, just go to neologicstudios.com/shop, and you will see I actually have a factory version of my chain set up with the Pro Channel modules in Cakewalk by Bandlab. You can grab that for free. If you guys are working in Ableton, I built my mastering chain with all the factory plugins that Ableton 10 suite comes with. And then here is the mastering template for Cakewalk. So this project's already laid out, routing, everything's labeled and assigned, so that way you guys can just grab it. Ignore the suggested price, so you can just go in, name the price as 0 right here, and you're good to go. Just hit add to cart and download it, and you're off to the mastering race. So again, this requires at least the May release or later, just because that was the version I saved it as. So yeah, there's that. If you guys haven't heard of the Music Producers Alliance, man, I'm tired. It's been a long day. Been a very long day. I'm also a mastering engineer for Music Producers Alliance, which you guys, if you join, you get a ton of perks. There's industry talks, studio hangouts, producer roundtable. I'm not going to go into the whole hoopla today, but you do get discounted services on mentoring and mastering. I am a coach as well, so if you guys want to learn how to master for yourself, or basically take everything I'm showing you here and apply it specifically to a project of yours, that's where the coaching sessions come into play. And yeah, there's discounts on that for pro members. Not to mention that you get access to the producer roundtable, which is weekly hangouts with other producers and artists to get feedback from everybody in the group, which accelerates everybody just tenfold, because you're learning so much more stuff from different perspectives, as well as the community. So you can reach out directly to artists, you can reach out directly to me through the member directory. Super cool stuff, and yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on that. Hope everybody has a great weekend, and yeah, great night. I'm gonna get to sleep because that's what I need to do.